Glad to be back in Ottawa, a town that seems to have a thing for poetry, and I think produces more good poets per capita than maybe anywhere else in English Canada. Some of you have moved to Toronto, but I still know who you are. All right, I've been reading a lot from Revolver, but I'll read some of those and maybe a few from Drift as well. It's getting up to 2 years, so I'm getting a little sick of myself. But I'll start with a couple of new poems. This one didn't make Revolver because it was too similar to another poem, but it was a coin flip. Tautology. Back in the old days, the middle centuries, I think you called them in bulimia, I was writing the same poem you were writing just now, while deciding if that funny smell on the bacon was something it picked up from something else in the fridge, or whether I'd be safer just to throw the whole package out. And it was just then, as you were pondering the terribly important title assigned to this new creation, The Fragile Ship of Want Storms the Blind Corridors of Devon, when wonder flies, or perhaps something more elegant, like Tautology of Dusk, that you realized I'd written middle centuries when you'd meant middle age or middle ages, Bulgaria when I meant to write bulimia, or its exact opposite, which when you think about it is never exact at all. To top it off, I'll admit you're going to have to look up tautology for me after all, though you're bound to leave it in at the end, I know, for accuracy's sake. I'm doing a section in a new book I'm working on of found poems called Weather Showroom. And these are poems made from other people's words. Message. Hello. It's about 12:45 in the evening. My name is Judd Nelson. I play the role of Jack Jones in the movie. I've not received a call sheet. I've not received a message telling me when my call time is. I want to let you know, my name is Judd Nelson. I'm playing the role of Jack Jones in this project. I have not received a call time or anything under my door, or even a phone message that's blinking on my phone here in the room. I've tried my best. You haven't let me know when my call time is. I'm putting a do not disturb on my phone because I'm going to go to bed. What can I tell you? What can you tell me? You obviously don't care when I come to work tomorrow, right? You don't care when I come into work tomorrow. I tried. I'm staying up as late as I can stay up. I've got to go to bed. I've got to go to work tomorrow. Who knows when? Good night. Please, don't try and reach me. It's actually a message left on the phone machine of a friend of my friend Elise Friedman who works in film, and it was Judd Nelson at 12:45 in the morning. One more of those, and then I'll get back to me. You might recognize this one eventually. 12 or 11. Hey, I want to tell you something, okay? And I want to send a message to you right now. Because again, it's 10:30 here in New York on a Wednesday, and once again I've made an ass of myself trying to get to a phone to call you at a specific time, and when the time comes for me to make the phone call, I stop whatever I'm doing and I go and make that phone call at 11 o'clock in the morning in New York, and if you don't pick up the phone at 10 o'clock at night, and you don't even have that goddamn phone turned on. I want you to know something, okay? I'm tired of playing this game with you. I'm leaving this message with you because you've insulted me. You've insulted me. You don't even have the brains or the decency as a human being. I don't give a damn that you're 12 years old or 11 years old, or that you're a child, or that your mother's a pain in the ass who doesn't care about what you do as far as I'm concerned. You have humiliated me for the last time with this phone, and when I come out there next week, I'm going to fly out there for the day just to straighten you out on this issue. I'm going to tell you just how disappointed I am, and how angry I am with you that you've done this to me again. You've made me feel like shit. You've made me feel like a fool over and over again with this crap you pull on me with this goddamn phone situation you would never dream of doing to your mother. And you do it to me constantly and over again. I'm going to get on a plane, or I'm going to come out there for the day, and I'm going to straighten your ass out when I see you. You understand me? I'm going to really make sure you get it. That I'm going to get on a plane and turn around and come home. So you better be ready Friday the 20th to meet me so I can let you know just how I feel about what a rude little pig you really are. You're a rude, thoughtless little pig, okay? No idea how that lines into triplets. Just beautifully. Anyway, so much for that. Addition. It's all amusing until you're asked to laugh. Dance halls, dunce caps, fence posts, iron lungs, detritus. Snort out between dreams after horrors, sweat wandering the neck, bend it to a whim, a corridor, any absence of composure. Bone grown hard over emptying chest, the lump on the springboard, scent of anger, panic, then the inevitable cannonball. A heart expands despite itself, new rooms thundering over the same stricken tenant. Lapse. I can't see the widow in the garden, black scarf glaring out the sun. I don't recall the swarm of fish, the garish mouths, the little gasps of blood. I've forgotten the dice box of thumbs, their flight, fret and clatter down the hall. I've stopped thinking about the sea of thought, weak peaks, flotsam in the swells. I can't remember that particular gray light, you know the one, that lingers on the pavement and keeps the day from warming. It's just the poem that beat the tautology poem out. It was also written very quickly for a kind of silent slam event in Toronto. I worked on it afterwards, but the bones of it were written very quickly, in about 10 minutes. It's called Counterpane. Hello, lady people. Pigeons are good. Winter is good. Stool pigeons are good. Though they're in league with the government, trying to kill all spontaneity. Hello, everyone. Time to start losing. Losing is good. Losing is what we came here to do. And it's going quite well. Thanks for asking. This morning I was passed by a minivan, someday printed on the vanity plate. I wonder what she meant. Someday soon going with you, or I'm gonna get out of here someday, or someday my prince or a real rain's gonna come. Given the words in advance, it might all be easier. Interpretation, that's where the problems start. Take Counterpane for an example. Sounds like a magician's con. A glass counter you'd bounce coins off, but really it means something comforting, a blanket to keep you warm. Coins bounce off the counterpane and under that blanket, where they exist now in my mind only, and so will multiply at my request. Nothing too greedy, enough for a coffee and a newspaper, somewhere I can look for a job, anything to reverse the recent downturn. People like people who stand for things, like Shakespeare arrived at Ellis Island with a trussed-up suitcase and the equivalent of $3.50 in badly out-of-date currency. And look where he ended up. A real job. I'd like that. People like people who have jobs. People like people who stand for things. This is a road poem. Jill and I have gone on many, many holidays, by necessity when we were young because they were cheaper, but we developed a taste for it. Basically getting into a car, usually in the middle of February when we couldn't stand the weather up here anymore, and just headed straight south through the States. And although they don't advertise down there, that country's very much like Canada. It's not one nation, it's built up of many nations. And one of them exists along the interstate within about 1 kilometer or so, all the way across the country. It becomes very familiar. Sometimes even comforting if you've done it often enough. The names of the franchises and the hotel chains change, but it's very much the same.
Harley-Davidson signs.
Yeah, Harley-Davidson and
Every town.
lots of Jesus, lots of adult movie stores. Anyway, this is a kind of a road poem, which is a little bit about that experience in that America. And it's called Terre Haute, and there must be 40 Terre Hautes in the United States. We're used to a season progressing logically. Then, heading south by car, it suddenly makes no sense in reverse. A race from ice to snow, gray earth and nipple trees, pooled water and mud, then the first white blades, seeming to expire when they're really cutting way for flowers. Done, flat fields, all at once 3 brilliant bantam hens over the wire, Technicolor peril beside the interstate, its football-sized hawks. Quarry, cops, mobile home, whole lives spilling like a purse over the backyard. Swamp, acres of raised cornfields waiting for seed, experimental hybrids, which now you think of it as odd, seeing as corn really isn't much but seed, hundreds per stalk. A few spare knocked off the cob would do. Over the state line, first exit sign, you can't find the camera. Downer, 1 mile. At the Flying J near Terre Haute, giants lumber to the buffet like livestock. They'll never make it, you think, but then the bill comes and it's 3 plates each, piled up with the straws and jello and the ends of fish sticks. Velvet at the checkout preens at the mention of her unique handle. Says she's heard of 14 other Velvets, but just one with her middle name. When the doll came out, I ran out and got one, though she's not real sure why the name didn't catch, like Crystal or China or Cheyenne. This is both geography and biography. Feel free to jump in whenever you want. Looked at briefly, it seems clear what this is, where it might have come from. Like this hammer, for example, how to pick it up, what to do with it. Sink a nail, of course, then use the claw to dry your drawers, cash out a car window. Just exactly like a bird, which stands for nothing but itself, though it sometimes conjures a pleasant noise, for some even reminiscent of a song, while for the bird, and for today, the only conversation that means anything now, it's just noise, a troubling of the air. In such landscapes, what can you truly know of anything, of trucking trends or traveler's diarrhea or the grooming preferences of birds? You read meaning into tarmac test strips, faces during piss breaks scanning the tabloids filled with personal ads for rural singles, or at roadside oases where you pause, bleary, for a map or a book on tape or a weather warning. For that matter, what could they really know, if that's even a word anymore, about us, about themselves? Bright, bristling, rushing surfaces, running lights and wind farms and vanity plates, arena rock and golden miles, improv demolition derby courses next to clumsy roadside Calvaries, white castles and giant inflatable gorillas colliding in the dark, following pioneer wagon trails and diverted creek runoffs, past towering Quonsets, light-jeweled refinery catwalks, while the graying muscle of the continent groans, turns over, constant, rolling, hopeful, unimpressed. Here's my rudimentary attempts at rhyme. I tried the more complex rhymes. I admire anybody who can pull a rhyme together and make sense. But I found if I kept it real dumb and simple, it sometimes worked out all right. And here's some that were the rhyming. It's 3 songs. Progress. Grammar is green, lovely is red. Monkeys drive bargains. Invention is dead. Blues for the jailer, vile is the spread. Diction apes splendor and hails the instead. Fend for the tender, spring for the bed. Envy is golden, irony's threat. Here's another one rhyming in a way, called Piano Gag. It's a kind of sonnet. The grapes of wrath decant, the leaves of grass derange, the wines of spring declaim, the branch of yew deplanes. Every malice has its window, every crochan has its wake, every tipster plays the scoundrel, every dullard takes his cake. Is it a matter of redress that makes me so digress? Does a blunder torn asunder send me thundering toward a sonnet? Gag the piano and bait the snare. Life is cruel, love is cruel, and life unfair. I was lucky enough to go to New Zealand recently and read at their really great arts festival there. Might have had something to do with the fact that the woman who organizes it, her last name is Croach. Has a fondness for Canadian poets. Anyway, they insisted I read this poem that had New Zealand in it, thinking there was some connection to me, but in fact it was about somebody else who commented that they were going to New Zealand and they'd been as an infant, but that didn't really count. So that's the New Zealand reference. It's not really about New Zealand. Never now. What convinces soon evaporates, ditches, sets out on junkets you allowed time for, though it tests the professional feathers. You'd see New Zealand, at least, as an adult, if that makes a difference, and just maybe it does, though it has no long-term repercussions. Now is never now, not even in the way that forwards this small statement. We get here via some more devious route. Breathe in, breathe out, that's what it's all about. So we're told, and so we believe, and so we surrender to it. But passion in the head is not passion in the knees, as you well know. It's as if we were never thought about it. We were so busy thinking it would all be about later. And yes, yes, of course it was. It's a political poem. Sundial. You drop into conversation like an afternoon dives into an empty swimming pool, gamely, but down an element. It's a fall day in a short week. The streetcar's cavern backlit with heads and arms, a turkey shoot, a roach motel. You say you feel qualified to talk about the service here, having served up so many slices of yourself over the years. You've grown weak from bowling olives at free radicals and chained pit bulls. Their days, both of them, are numbered. I have my rant about transience and intransigence. You like to run down the simile as a viable artistic strategy. You call it sex through a sheet, but the way you call it that makes it so vividly sexy. The sheet with my name on it, the sad euphemism losing its way toward the gap, downspout, spinning into unknown. I was told this was how they vote in Japan, but I'm not sure I believe a word of it anymore. That raft of rabble and no-goodniks, their avowed allegiance to the way things stand. And so we scroll through the hours, like the fireball scours the skin of a bank tower, tireless rehearsal of the dark scenes in tow. I don't write about my family very often, mostly because my mother gets extremely angry. So this isn't about my immediate family, it's about my extended family. In fact, my great aunt, in fact. And I only met her once in the early 90s, and she was getting on. And she was a bird-like woman with a goiter and a hearing aid. And she shrieked at the top of her lungs, you could never hear a word you were saying. And every time she poured people a drink, she would go underneath the sink to an almost empty bottle of one liquor or another, insist on pouring it all out and getting rid of the bottle. So I came home and I talked to my mother, and she said, "Did you meet Aunt Olive?" I said, "Yeah." "Yes, I did." And strange bird there. She goes, "Well, she was very popular with the boys after the war." And this sort of seemed very improbable to me. And I said, "Was she popular with the boys? Was she a good dancer or a conversationalist?" And my mother looked at me like I was stupid, and then actually made this gesture. So, this poem's from my great Aunt Olive, who put out. all of amongst the heavy petters. When she's not talking, and that's rare enough even with the goiter, she can't hear a thing. A plus for an old girl who, unlike her kin, ends one bottle before opening another. There's glass plastered into garden walls, a threat of poison tossed in with the carp and lettuce and marine lilies. Throw as many googlies as you like, there's no one to lob your balls back. Not like at Normandy, not like the B.of.B. There's Herbert, rangy brother, rung twitchy by the Blitz and fled for Spain. Sister Doris, trapped by jealousy and duty and bingo. 2 sons and their brood of boys, too young and squirmy to kiss you properly. Though you remember the pier as it was, before the moribund casino and man-made recreation pond. Crowds so big then, young lovers risked the low tide for a bit of privacy. Salt on a lips kiss. Little hands shoved up under your jumper. Who could resist their boldness? Who'd want to? Rejected and left over, sunlit cads, and best, the hungry boys, dead and buried in their minds already, improbably reprieved. For anybody who saw me read in Ottawa before, I apologize in advance, but I wanted to read the poem Rod mentioned, called Plenty. I think it was Robert Frost who set out the dictum, you shouldn't use the word beauty or beautiful more than twice in a career. And this uses it 13 times. So the idea is that hopefully is that on the other side of bad poetry is good poetry. Plenty. The sky lit up like a question or an applause meter is beautiful like everything else today. The leaves in the gutters, salt stains on shoes. The girl at the IGA who looks just like Julie Delpy, but you don't tell her. She's too young to get the reference, and coming from you it'll just seem creepy. So much beauty today you can't find room for it. Closets already filled with beautiful trees and smells and glances and clever turns of phrase. Behind the sky there's a storm on the way, which with your luck will be a beautiful storm. Dark clouds beautiful as they arguably are, the rain beautiful as it always is. Even lightning can be beautiful in a scary kind of way. There's a word for that too, but I forget it for the moment. And maybe the sun will hang in long enough to light up a few raindrops, like jewels or glass, or those bright beads girls put between the letters on the bracelets that spell out their beautiful names, Sky, or Miranda, or Veranda, which isn't even a name, though it is a word we use to call things what they are, and would be a pleasant place to sit and watch the beautiful sky, beautiful storm, the people with their beautiful names walking toward the lake in lovely clothing, saying unpleasant things over the phone about the people they work with. All of it just adding to the mother load, the surfeit of beauty, which on this day is just a fancy way of saying lots, too much, skid loads, plenty. And I think I'll finish with a poem that was supposed to be in Revolver, and I got persuaded to put it in Drift instead. I was going to include it as an errata slip, and it's patterned after a poem by Paul Muldoon, which uses the English errata slip style, which is quite elegant. It just says, it has a page number, and it says, for this word, read this word. So this is errata. For silver, read sliver. For valve, read salve. For salve, read slave. For slave, read salvo. For champion, read champignon. For flowers, read fowlers. For feign, read rain. For error, terror. For calm, read clam. For muscle, muscle. For drops, read ropes. For ropes, read tropes. For rain, read drain. For a plum, read a plum. For a trifle, read rifle. For balm, read balm. For slip, read slap. For past, read last. For last, read glass. For wine, read wind. For insert, read inert. For insect, read insert. For dove, read cove. For lover, hover. For scuff, read scoff. For strife, read strafe. For there, read here. For Scrabble, rabble. For chat, read that. For read for. For read head. For head, read here. For here, read heart, thread, dearth, and so on. Thanks again for having me. I'm just going to act like a shopping network shill here and say that if you do want to buy my book, it's $15. You can get a free copy of Asphalt Cigar because I have way too many of them in my basement. Thanks.